Hello, this is Bob Holland with the Autodesk Inventor Tech Support Group, and this is the webinar series for Inventor. This one is going to be pertinent to configuring Inventor. And we're going to go over, we're in the introduction now, we're going to go over how to access technical support, and then we'll jump into configuring Inventor, and we'll go over projects, application options, templates, style libraries, appearance and material libraries, and content center. Okay, we have upcoming webinars. This is our schedule, and you don't have to worry about writing this down. This is being recorded, and we will be sending you a link to this. When you have questions in the GoToWebinar panel, you can type in your questions, and we will try to get answers in there for you. If not, we will try to provide a PDF after the fact. Thank you. Alright, accessing technical support. We have an upcoming answer day for Inventor. It's January 27th, and this is the information, and this would be a good time for you to ask those questions that don't typically get answered on a day-to-day basis. Alright. Some technical support resources that are available to you. System requirements. This is a very good source for getting your system requirements for figuring out does this system meet minimum requirements, or if you're looking at doing future purposes for Inventor, you want to look at this and then try to project 3-4 years out in advance, so you'll have a fair idea as to what might be required. Okay, installation, activation, and licensing. This is another up and ready page that is very useful for you. And when you are working with cloud assets like Configurator 360 and cloud software like Fusion 360, you'll frequently have to go in and manage it using this link. Alright, so we're going to go over projects, application options, templates, style library, application material library, and content center. Okay, project file. The project file is the configuration file for your Inventor. It goes through and tells Inventor where to find all of its parts and pieces. So we tell it where the design library, the design data is, and this is all your styles. It tells it where your templates are, your content center files, where they are to be stored, and it tells Inventor these are locations of our libraries and frequently accessed folders. Okay, the project file has an IPJ extension, and it's in XML format. So if your organization is really stringent on XMLs, you probably need to put an exception in for this. Other than that, we've covered most of that. Okay, how do you access your projects? You go to Get Started, Launch Projects, and this is what it will look like, and the important information is down in the bottom, and this tells it this is where you configure your appearance libraries, material libraries, what workspace you're going to be using, folder options, and we'll be going through all of this. Alright. Project files come in two types: single user and vault. And the single user is what is predominantly used. Vault is used specifically for Inventor with Vault. You wouldn't use a Vault project otherwise. And what this does is it helps with file management for purposes of Vault. One of the things that you're going to want to do, and we're going to go over this in the options is you're going to want to make sure that you have your names being unique, and this will help a lot. Okay, this is where this selection here, the use style libraries, this is where you tell Inventor if your design data is going to be read-only or not. By default, it is read-only. This means if you go in and you change your sheet metal style, and then you say you want to write it to the library, and it's like it won't allow me to, this is where you need to make that change. So you right mouse click on it, gives you option read, write, or read only. And you've got your appearance libraries and your material libraries. And the unique things about the Autodesk appearance libraries, it can be overridden and edited. Same with your Inventor material libraries. The Autodesk material library is read-only, and it is a pretty comprehensive list. The Autodesk material library is. The Inventor material library is a basic selection of materials that are frequently used in manufacturing. So when you if you have a custom library you've gone through, you've created it, we'll be going over that, and you want to add it, you'll notice on the right hand side you'll see the plus button. You'll hit the plus button and you'll browse to it, and then it'll get added to the list, and then you just double click on it and it'll get highlighted, and that'll be your default library. Workspace, work groups, libraries, and frequently used subfolders. These are set up so that when you go into the open dialog box, these will populate on the left hand side, so that it will be easily, you can bounce to these locations pretty quickly. And you'll see the things that I had, these are there. Your workspace, that's the location where you're actually, for this project, that's where you're going to be doing your work. Work group search paths, these are shared locations that you may have multiple people utilizing different parts for. And frequently used subfolders, this just easily gets you further down the tree at a quick jump. Now libraries, now you may have a number of different libraries. This is where you put like purchase parts and things like that. Things that are, maybe you've got a sub-assembly that goes into a third of all of your assemblies, and you've got it already pre-packaged, and this is where you put it, so it makes it easy to get for everybody. Okay, your folder options. The folder options area, this supersedes the information that is in your application options. This tells it where your design data is, which is your styles. Same for your templates. And these are the Content Center files. These are not your libraries. These are when you go to Content Center and you tell it to create that bolt. This is the location that it gets created in. And this is when it's set to default, as it is here in the project file, then it is deferring the information to your application options. So what we usually would do is we recommend leave the application options fairly close to default and change them here in your project file, so that way you can pass this project file to everybody and everybody's pointing to the same location. So if you're in a network environment and you want to have all of your Content Center parts on a network location, so everybody's going to the same location point, same thing. The default for this would be in your personal user profile. Well, Inventor remembers where it placed that bolt in that assembly from, and if somebody else opens up that assembly, they don't have access to your personal user profile, so then it comes up and asks them to find the appropriate fastener. So the recommendation is that you either configure a location on everybody's computers to the same location and make sure everybody has the same ones created, so you can have a master up on the network and then you copy them to local, or you put everything on the network. Now, when you put everything up on the network, you need to make sure that your network is up for the task. Because if you're constantly going up there for style information and content center files, you're going to increase your network traffic considerably. We've had instances where people thought their network was going to be up for the task, and it turns out that it's not, and the performance for the overall experience for the users isn't what is desired. Now, for your options, the old versions, numbers to keep, the number of versions to keep. Default is 0. I usually keep 1. If you set it to -1, it'll keep all of them. A lot of disk space there. So this is where you set this up. Now, the next option is unique file names. Highly recommend you leave this on, because if for one reason or another your product goes gangbusters and you end up having to hire a bunch of people, and then you find that you need to get into a document management system and so on and so forth, and if you haven't been using unique file names and you have, say, 35 part 12s and they're different, it's going to be very complicated to go back and redo all of these so that you have unique file names. It gets to be a little more cumbersome on that. So that's a highly recommended item. If you can work with unique file names, please do. It'll make your life easier in the future. Alright. Configuring content center libraries. When you come into your project, in the lower right, you're going to see kind of an obscure button with a pencil on it. You hit it, and then it's going to pop down another one, and you'll hit it, and then it's going to come in and allow you to choose what libraries that have been installed, which ones do you want to make available to it yourself when you're in the content center and you're trying to build content. And you'll notice that by default they're all read-only. Now, it also shows you the location at the top where the IDCL files are being pulled from. So if you're going to create a custom library, that's where it's going to put it. And the buttons in the bottom just above OK and Cancel. The one on the left is the library properties. So if you have a library and you want to get more information out, that's where you use. The next one is create a new user library, and then the X obviously is delete a library. And then the next one is transfer libraries between desktop and Vault. So if you've got like custom desktop content and you're going to be moving over to Vault, this is where you could do that. The next one is migrate or synchronize out-of-date libraries. So this is if you have a library that you created in 2014, you come to 2016, and you copy it into this location, it's going to come up, it's going to show that it needs to be migrated, it's going to have a little yellow symbol on it, and then you will just tell it to Migrate, and we'll be going through that in a little bit. Okay, application options. We're going to go over some of the more popular items that we usually get questions on, or people need assistance on, below the sub, so that you can see the tabs. So bounce around on these. Okay, colors. This is where you set your color scheme. I recommend a background of a single color for presentation purposes. White background tends to be the best. Otherwise, general user, you get to choose what you want. The reflections for whether or not you want chrome, or you'll notice that sometimes that you may have a large sheet metal piece and it's set to reflect, and you see a guy on a motorcycle. That's one of them. It's parking lot. You can change the reflection environment here, so that you get to choose what you want. Okay. Alright, we're going to go over the pre-highlighting and enhanced. Pre-highlighting's the top, shows you how you highlight it. Now the enhanced highlighting is, it tries to choose contrasting colors so that it's easier to identify. So that's in the lower right corner. Okay, application options drawings. This is where you would choose, when you go up and say new drawing, whether or not it's going to do a DWG or an IDW. I personally like IDWs, so that way it's very easily distinguished between an Inventor drawing and an AutoCAD drawing, just at first glance. Okay, if it's an Inventor drawing, you get to choose the AutoCAD version that it's going to be compatible with. Hardware options, the hardware tab. We have a number of settings here. The default is performance. Quality is going to take the graphics presentation over performance. This isn't generally used. Performance is usually used, and this is basically, I'm trying to get as much done as I can without the graphics being 100% perfect. So the colors may not be exact. Anti-aliasing will be turned on, so the edges of the parts, if they're at a slight angle, they may look a little jagged. And we have conservative mode. Conservative is where we're trying to go for reliability, and it slows the information going to the graphics card. This helps for stability reasons. If the card isn't necessarily up to all of the, it's not keeping up with what you're wanting to do, sometimes setting it to conservative mode prevents crashes. And we have software graphics. This is used for if the machine just is, you're crashing a lot. Set it to this. This will tell us if it then stabilizes, then what it does is we're not using any of the hardware graphics drivers. We're doing everything in software. You will see a performance hit on this. So you'll use this for diagnostics purposes or getting Inventor to run on lower end hardware. And There's times when we request diagnostics information. This is the diagnostics button. What this is going to do is it's going to pull this up, and the part that a lot of time people do, they'll take a screenshot, and this is what they send us. What we really want you to do is hit the OK button, and it's going to place a great deal more information into the paste buffer. And as soon as you hit OK, then you can go to Notepad, paste it in there, and save that out as a TXT file. Send it to us. That way we get a better idea as to what the configuration of Inventor is, and what add-ins are loaded, service packs, updates, so on and so forth. So it really helps us out there. In the assembly option, the biggest part here is Express graphics mode. Now this is set up for large assemblies, and this is the threshold. The number on the right is a threshold for the number of unique instances that are available. Once you hit that, then it's going to set the assembly to start storing Express graphics. Now the Express graphics is going to embed raster images in there, so that when you open the assembly in Express mode, it opens considerably faster, and it is going to give you your assembly graphically. You can move it, rotate it. To work on it, you have to load full. The caveat here is it embeds graphics into the assembly. It's going to take a assembly file that may be 500K and turn it into 20 to 50 megabytes, depending on the complexity of it and the graphics that have to be added to it. So you need to keep in mind that when you turn on Express graphics for these assemblies, the files get larger. So there's a lot more data transfer if it's over a network, and particularly if it's over a LAN. Okay, Content Center. So this is where you're going to tell it that you're either going to use desktop content, which are IDCL files, or you're going to use vaulted content off of Vault server. So we're recommending, for purposes of keeping everything running smoothly in the long run, desktop content. You can put this out on the network, and everybody can use the same location and use the same IDCL files, and it makes it easier for purposes of migrating than if it's in Vault. Vault takes additional overhead. Now, these IDCL files, if they're out on the network, that's great. Make sure your network is up for the task for these, and everybody's pointing to the same set of IDCL files. This is so you can have custom libraries up there. A number of organizations say, well, these are all the ones that we use, so they'll just have their own custom library with all the parts that they use, so they're all in one location. Makes it pretty easy. Can be a little more complicated in initial setup. Okay, you'll notice that in the bottom you've got the import, export, and enclose. Well, this will allow us to import standard settings. So if things have gotten messed up, you can go back and restore these. The AutoCAD related settings, it turns Inventor closer to the way you may see it in AutoCAD. It changes the way the wheel on the mouse. It's you'll notice that Inventor zooms different than the AutoCAD. This is one of the places the setting will change that, or you can set it otherwise. And the other is the Inventor settings. That's closer to defaults. Okay, and you'll have all of these. You can import them, and it'll reset the application options. Now you can export these so that you can have everybody's configuration more or less close to the same. Or if you've made a lot of changes and you're migrating to another release, this is here. Be careful exporting. Moving forward, it's going to remember some of where your older stuff was, so you'll need to make sure you point things to the appropriate locations on an as-needed basis. But it's a very good way to save your settings, restore them if things have gotten messed up, or if you have a whole work group and you want to roll this out to everybody. It's kind of like the way they do it in AutoCAD. Okay, templates. By default, you'll see the screen on the left. If you come in and hit the little arrow button, it changes it to the view on the right. So what this is going to do is you can just pick your standard ones. Here you can show them all to you. If you hit the little gear, then it's going to allow you to configure your templates. So if you go in and select Millimeter Nancy, then it's going to go into your default template location, copy, say, all of the metric ISO into there, so that's what you will see. Or if you've chosen inches in Nancy, so you'll notice that there's a bunch of templates and then there's folders underneath. The folders underneath are the masters, and the one at the top level in your templates are all of the ones that will be shown to you by default. Now you create your own custom template. I really don't recommend you call it standard.idw or standard.dwg. The reason is that if at some point in time we found that we have a problem, we will be fixing that with a update or service pack, and we may override these templates. So if you had a custom template that was called standard.idw and it was in the default template location, and we go in and update it, we just overwrote your standard.idw with our standard.idw. So we recommend that you create your own custom templates and use your own names, so that way everybody sorry about that, will know that that's a custom one. Okay, you'll notice that in the project file, the default location, users, public documents, Autodesk, Inventor 2016 templates. Well, that's the same location that's in the application options. So just to show you how those are there. These can point to location out on the network so that everybody is using the same set of template files rather than off of a particular machine. Now, if your network is not up for the task, then maybe you have your masters up on the network, and then you have batch files or scripts that will copy the necessary files down to the appropriate locations for everybody. if you've gone through, made changes to a template, then we provide you with an option of save copy as template. What this does is it saves that into the template folder so that you can, next time you say new, it's going to give you that option. Okay. Style libraries. This is your design data. You'll notice that if you go into the styles and shows you the whole list of styles, you'll notice that for each style there's pretty much an XML file. It's in your design data for that style. Remember, in your project file, if you have your style library set to read only, you won't be able to save into these locations. You will need to set read write in order to update any of these information. So if you have a new sheet metal rule that you're trying to get into your style library, you need to put it in. The IPJ has to be read write. Same with dimension styles. So you'll hit the style editor under the manage tab and come in. It'll show you your different styles, and it's showing you local, so that means it's out of the document that you have open. Local styles defined in the upper right hand, so this way you can see where you're looking. Okay, let's see. When you open this up, you're going to see that it is read only. You need to go to the, if it's read only, you need to write. You need to go back to the project file and change it. Alright. Style Library Manager. The Style Library Manager is in the Tools area, and this is a handy little tool for, you can migrate styles, you can compare two different design data folders, and it's going to show in this style, it's defined in one and not in the other. You can have it create new style libraries, and it's a very useful tool. You can create a new style, and when you create a new style, you can copy from an existing, or you can copy, create a completely empty style library. So you can migrate. You'll notice that when you open up a design data, it gives you, if it feels it needs to be migrated, the migrate button will be highlighted, and the items that are in blue, you will see it exists in that library but not in the other. So one of the things I'll frequently do, rather than migrate my styles, I will take the new design data. First thing I do with my design data is I take that folder and I zip it up, just in case. So that way I have factory default design data, and then what I'll do is I'll take that, if I've got a shared, it's up on the network, I'll create a 2016, put it up there. I will look at my old 2014, 2015, and I'll go through, compare these, and as soon as I highlight like the revision table, it's going to allow me to move that over, or copy it over, not move it. So I'll frequently do that rather than try to migrate. So if there's any new features in 2016, they're there, and I'm just bringing in that is different in my previous to the new one. Alright, appearance and material libraries. Appearance is, we'll call it, for any better terminology, we'll call it paint. Material, that's the physical aspects of the property of what you're creating. So if you created a bar, let's say we'll call it 1 inch round and a foot long. Well, you could say wood, oak, or it could be aluminum, it could be stainless steel. Doesn't matter. But then we can say we can have appearance override on it. And we really want this to be red rather than just plain aluminum. So it would be like painting the aluminum. Alright. These libraries are ADSK lib files, and these are in, this is the location at the top where they are by default, and you can, when you create them, you'll create a new ADSK file, and this is where they will be. So when you're backing this up, if you've modified them, this is where you'll need to go look. Basic materials, same with appearances. Now, the appearance is the visual aspect of the material. So you can go in and it can be assigned any face, feature, part, or assembly. So you can color it accordingly. It gives you visual feedback for the material. Now, the material has two aspects. One aspect is the physical properties, which would be frequently used for FEA, and that way you can test the material for its intended use. The other is the default appearance of that material. Okay, so customizing. We can come in and create new libraries, and if we're going to go in, say we'll create a material library, we'd hit the little globe next to generic. It's usually generic by default, and we can come in and we would go in and you can tell it to open existing library, create, or you can actually remove a library here too. If we go in and create, it's going to go in and create a library in the location that is specified for our libraries, and what we'll do is they'll show up in the list after we've done that. We can highlight some out of the Inventor library, and then we can actually just say add to, and that new library that we have just created shows up in there, so we can then add those materials to that library. So what we'll do is to create new material in the document, we would just go in and hit the little button here. It's going to create in whatever your active library is. So for the material library editor, we hit the button, it's going to create into our default material library, and it'll come in, just default new. We will have to populate the characteristics for the material and give it a name. So we're going to go in for this one, we'll just have it a checkered color pattern, and we'll call it checkers, and we'll add it to the library, and then we're good to go. We have to add the new, say if it's Parents Library, we right mouse click on it or hit the plus button and say Add Library, and we can browse to the location wherever we want it, and it will allow us to add it. And then once it's there, we double click on it, it will then be, the check marks will tell us that it's the default library, and then we can just right mouse click on the material we want and apply it to a part, or we can just drag the material or the appearance onto the part that we want, and it'll automatically get mapped. Okay, Content Center. Content Center is a robust collection of fasteners and parts from a wide variety of manufacturers, and these are used for like a tube and pipe or cable and harness, sheet metal, these, and of course all of the fasteners, nuts, bolts, washers, so on and so forth. And these all are to, I think it's 18 international standards, so it's not a bad location or collection. When you place a part in the assembly, you go to the IDCL file and it creates a part. It's going to create that part that you've specified with the interface. It's going to put it in the location specified by your project file or your application options, and then it builds that part in that location. Then it uses the place command to place it in the assembly. Now, the assembly will remember where that part was placed into it, so that way you can we frequently will have people that will come in and it's like, well, we've been creating all these parts and now I give to somebody else and they don't have those parts, because the default location, as you can see, is in the user's personal project, and other users don't typically have access to another user's profile folders. So you need to think a little bit ahead, get these collected in a common location, configure your IPJ file to use these common locations, and then as you build your assemblies and you pull the content files that go in there, everybody's creating and pulling from the same location, so that way it's common for everybody, and then you don't end up with somebody coming in and not being able to find the necessary parts. Okay, now desktop versus vault content. In your application options, you get, this is where you make your choice. By default, it is IDCL files, and those tend to be easier to manage and maintain than Vault. Vault is needed for some installs for your particular standardizations, but there's a cost overhead for Vault, and it's care, maintenance, and feeding for the Vault. If you just need to have access to the content center files, recommend IDCL files. You can put them out on the network, have everybody access them. You can have custom libraries out there. It makes it pretty easy to maintain. Here's an in-depth comparison. I'm not going to go over this and let it read out. You guys will get a copy of this. You can go over it and compare for yourselves. Okay, desktop content. If they are red, that means those are not available to the system. So what I usually recommend, if it's red in Inventor and we need to investigate it for this, those aren't available, uncheck them, so that way Inventor isn't going to even try to use them. So this is the default location. These are the IDCL files. You'll notice these files are not all that small, so you just don't want to haphazardly copy these around. This is the options that are available for, they're coming out of the Factory Design Suite Ultimate. You'll notice here that you can check the standards that you want installed on the system. So if you've missed these, you have to go back through the installer and put them, reinstall them if they somehow got missed. Alright. Now remember when I said that if you have an older version of a library, it sees it, it'll recognize it. It will show you, I think I said it was a triangle, it's a circle, and it will notify you. You select that, then you'll be able to migrate that, and the upgrade tool button will become available, and walk through, gives you information, gives you, select the one you want. Do we want to create a log file and backup? Generally, yes. And it just gives you the options. After it's done, it will then become available. The thing about the migrating, if it's the same name, you'll notice that this is coming, it didn't change the name. It's still referencing test 2015. We actually have, I've seen some that reference going quite a ways back. So you might want to think about how you want to call those so that it's relevant for you. Alright, some tips. We have the Inventor Reset utility. This was something that is available online, or with 2016 it is now available in there. So this resets the Inventor portion of the user's profile to factory defaults. This, we have found, resolves a wide number of problems that may have happened to the user's profile, and this solves a fair number of issues. What it does is it makes the application re-register with the operating system for the user, re-registers all locations, and then things miraculously then start working as expected. When you run this, it allows you to go many releases back. So if needed, you can clean them all out. If you're not running 2014, 15, 16, I recommend you clean up the information anyway. The other is Inventor Color Scheme Editor. Now I show this to you because I've been requested on a number of occasions to. Some of the colors are hard to see for certain users and they want to customize their colors. This is a tool we provide. It's not one that we support. It modifies the user's profile immediately. You're going to want to back this information up before you start making any changes. So just, it's in the SDK user tools, and it's the Inventor Color Scheme Editor, and you can take you'll notice the color schemes that are there, and you can adjust the different colors as needed. This is more or less, you're on your own. We provide it as is. Gives you the ability to export your registry for backups. Strongly recommend that you do that. You can change the colors, so like if you wanted the enhanced highlight rather than blue, you want red. There it is. Okay. Export to AutoCAD drawings. Okay. You can save these configuration files and bring them back in so that when you are transferring to specific, say you have a subcontractor and they need specific formats, you can create a configuration file for them, so when you export, it will automatically bring in and remember this information. It's a text file. Don't mess with the text file, but just want to show you that it's nothing encoded. Allows you to go in, save, set all of your export options, and then you can save the configuration. Best visual fidelity. If you're using AutoCAD, this will create colors that aren't, they'll be RGB colors. They aren't going to be color 0 or color 1, color 10, be an RGB value. So your CTBs probably won't work with some of those. So a lot of them, if you go into AutoCAD, you put the closest AutoCAD mapping, and then it'll use your 1 through 255s. And then you can use a specific AutoCAD template file. So if you want to come in and have certain information, you have it, and then you can save it. Okay, we're going to go over inserting an image into a drawing template. So we go at edit the definition, and you can insert the image. One of the options it gives you is link. This links it to the file, so if the file changes, if the image changes from the location you're pulling it from, then it'll change it in the template next time you go in and save that template. If it's not linked, then it won't change. So give you a couple of options there. You come through, you change one of them, it automatically updated when it's linked. After the fact, you can break these links, and you'll notice that there are instances that Inventor's telling you have linked files and you're not understanding where you may have old embedded logos that the links need to be broken to. So this gives you an idea there. Okay, and then you can save your new template out as a template. And there are a number of older files that have OLE links that are embedded. Can't break the link, can't get rid of them. Here's some VBA code that you can copy this out, drop it in the VB editor, run it, and it will allow you to remove those links. Okay. Vault content. Separate install. Here's the link to the content, and this will allow you to go into the ADM console and load up these libraries with this. So these are a little different. These are MDBF files that you run the executable, and it's going to allow you to unpackage them, and then you go to the ADM console for Vault and load them up. and questions and answers. All right, what we're going to do is, we're short on time. I'm not going to go over any of these, but all the questions that were asked, we will try to put into a document and answer them and provide that as a PDF. Thank you all for attending, and we hope you all had a very good experience with this, and you all learned something. All right, thank you. Bye.